Hi everyone, I'm going to discuss the paper about input price discrimination and horizontal shareholding. This paper was published at Journal of Regulatory Economics 2022. This journal is a B+ journal. So the author of this paper is Yoping Lee and Shuai. So here it says that antitrust law in many countries prohibit the setting of differential prices across buyers, which is we can see that antitrust law is actually the laws that doesn't allow for the seller to make a discrimination between the buyers. So it says in Robinson-Patman Act, RPA, remains one of the core pieces of antitrust legislation in the United States, essentially designed to prevent supplier from benefiting one retail purchaser over another by price discrimination. This means that it is a regulation that the seller cannot make different price to the buyers. So these are the outline of this paper. In the first section, I will try to introduce the introduction. Next is the basic model. In section 3, the authors endogenous horizontal shareholding. Later we will discuss more about it. And then the fourth is the robustness check. The last one is the conclusion. So let's see the purpose of this paper. The author compared the market outcome under two pricing regimes of input uniformity and discrimination when the downstream industry is characterized by horizontal shareholding. Means that in this paper we will see that upstream supplier will give two kind of input price. One is the uniform and the other one is discriminatory input price. And then the main finding, the first one, when one downstream manufacturers hold the share of its rival, input price discrimination increases total output and decreases the price of the final good relative to uniform pricing. Therefore, later, because under price discrimination, the total output is higher, then this decreases the final price, P. This therefore will increase social welfare and consumer surplus, and so does producer surplus. So we can see here that consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare are higher under price discrimination than uniform price. The second one, when the downstream manufacturers supply differentiated consumer goods and compete in price, input price discrimination raises consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare relative to uniform. So later this is about compete in price per ton, because the author also check for the robustness under per ton competition. The next one is in the long run, the increase in joint profit due to horizontal shareholding is higher when the input price is uniformly. This means that because the authors check for the incentive to do the horizontal shareholding. So how did the authors check for the incentive for this horizontal shareholding? They find that they should use the joint joint profit means because now we have downstream firm 1 plus downstream firm 2. So the author tried to find the incentive to have the horizontal shareholding is whether after having the shareholding the joint profit is higher than before having the horizontal shareholding. So the author says that actually the joint profit under uniform price is higher than the joint profit under discriminatory compared to no shareholding. So that is why in the long run, increase in joint profit due to horizontal shareholding is higher under uniform compared to the discriminatory. So later we will see how the author explain about it. So here some of the economic literature provide supports showing that compared with uniform pricing, input price discrimination harms social welfare in many circumstances. So actually this is the motivation of the author, because in other literature we will see later here, like in the GRABA, input price discrimination actually harm the social welfare. But here, when the author introduced the horizontal shareholding, input price discrimination can increase the social welfare. Okay. Earlier literature on input price discrimination has found that it does reduce social welfare by shifting production from the lower cost downstream firm to the higher cost one, as higher price is charged to the former one. So we can see like the GRABA 1990 cuts 1987 and so on. But there are also circumstances in which production can be shifted efficiently. For example, when the input supplier is not an unconstrained monopolist. We can say like, I think the meaning is unconstrained monopolist here means maybe there are many firms, many upstream supplier, but we will check it maybe someday, or bargain with the buyers about the price. So we can see like in open, not only does import price discrimination impact welfare in the short run, but also it may have long run effect on the downstream firm technology choices. In the GRABA 1990 shows that as a higher input price is charged to the more efficient downstream firm, the downstream firm incentive to reduce its production cost is lower under price discrimination than under uniform. Means that the upstream supplier is usually charging a higher input price to the more efficient firm. Therefore, since the upstream charge higher input price to the more efficient firm, now the downstream firm incentive to reduce production cost is lower under price discrimination than under uniform pricing. Okay, so this paper focuses compare the market outcome under two pricing regime. Uniformity, this is the same as uniform input price, and price discrimination. Okay, so we can go directly through the model. So here there are three firms in the market. One is the monopoly market called M, the monopoly supplier called M, and there are two downstream firm, downstream firm 1 and downstream firm 2. Okay, so here we don't consider about the asymmetric marginal cost. So the author consider same marginal cost C1 equals to C2 equals to C. But the difference between this paper and the GRABA and other paper is the author introduced the horizontal shareholding. Horizontal shareholding means now downstream firm 1 own part of the downstream firm 2. So this means a horizontal shareholding. They are because they are in the same downstream. Okay, and then lambda is equals from 0 to 0.5. Okay, so this paper discuss about uniform pricing. Only W we can see. Okay, let me check here. The pi 1 equals to P minus W Q1. Okay, and so that's for the W pi 2. Pi 2 equals to P minus W Q2. So that's the meaning of uniform input price, the same W. Okay, so these are the objective function under uniform price. Okay, so I think I can a little bit okay, so here pi 1 here, capital pi 1 means this is the objective function of firm 1, downstream firm 1, which is the operational profit. This is the operational profit plus the part of the profit he owns in firm 2. And this is for firm 2 because firm 2 share some of his profit as much as lambda pi 2 to the rival firm 1, right? So this is this why we have 1 minus lambda pi 2. And okay, this is the operational profit, the small pi 1. So we can just substitute this into the objective function here. Okay, and then this is the objective function under price discrimination. Here we have the only difference we have is the operational profit. Operational profit is now we have WI. Okay, so the game setting in the first stage, firm N set the input prices W bar or WI. So this WI can be W1 and W2. In the second stage, the manufacturers simultaneously determine their output level. So in the second stage, the downstream firm compete in Cournot. Okay, let's see we can have this one under uniform W bar and discrimination WI. So we solve the game backward. We take the first order condition of the objective function, capital pi 1 and capital pi 2 with respect to Q1 and Q2. So we solve them simultaneously and then we can get Q1 is a function of W bar and Q2 is a function of W bar. So we can see from here that given W bar, increase in lambda will decrease Q1. Okay, but for Q2, given W bar, increase in lambda will increase Q2 because the denominator will lower, right? So something given by lower denominator is higher. Okay, so but here we can see under this, so we can compare the result under uniform, and the right hand side is the discriminatory input price. Okay, so we substitute Q1 and Q2 into upstream supplier objective function, and so thus for the discriminatory we can solve the first stage. So we can find that optimal uniform input price under uniform is 1 minus C over 2, but optimal discriminatory input price under discriminatory input price is this one, W1 and W2. Okay, so we can verify that actually when we sum this W1 and W2 over 2, the result will be the same as W bar. But we can see the arrangement here. We can see that W1 is lower than W bar and lower than W2, means that W2 is the highest input price. Why? Because under discriminatory input price, the firm 1 as an acquiring firm let the rival or acquired firm from 2 to produce more. So we can see the derived demand. We also not derived demand, but we can see from here that from this equation that increase in WI reduce I repeat again, maybe we can go through here. Okay, I didn't write it here, but that's because why we have the arrangement like this. W1 is the lowest one because firm 1 as acquiring firm led firm 2 to produce more. Okay, so now firm 2 has higher market share. Why he led firm 2 to produce more? Because when firm 2 produce more, firm 2's profit is higher. Which is we know that part of firm 2's profit is going to firm 1. We can see the objective function here. So when firm 1 let firm 2 produce more, firm 1 will earn higher as lambda is higher. Okay, so that is why. And then we can find lemma 1 when one downstream manufacturer holds the share of its rival. Under price discrimination, the monopolistic input supplier charge a lower input price to this manufacturer, means that to the acquiring firm from 1, then to the other manufacturer, means to the acquired firm. Okay, so actually this is the explanation. Holding the rival share causes the manufacturer to choose a lower output, causes firm 1 to choose a lower output. The input supplier charge the manufacturer a lower input price because his firm 1 derived demand is now lower, so the input supplier charge a lower input price. Okay, so when we solve the calculation, we can find the equilibrium quantity and price, so under uniform and under discriminatory. So we can see here is the Q1U and so on, and this is okay. So here under under price discriminatory, it says here that discriminatory pricing of the input exactly offset the effect of horizontal shareholding on input. So that is why we can find Q1 is equals to Q2, means that because we know that from 1 let from 2 produce more, right? But because we have upstream, upstream charge. Let's say I can maybe write a little bit. Q firm 1 let firm 2 produce more in the derived demand, but now W1 is lower than W2. So means that here these two effect. So the input price here offset the my offset what, because I let firm 2 produce more, so the lower input price in me offset the incentive I gave firm 2 to produce more. So that is why we can find Q1D equals to Q2D. Okay, so we can find proposition 2. When one downstream manufacturer holds the share of its rival, input price discrimination increases total output and decreases the price of the final good relative to uniform pricing. So we can compare these two. So we add them and we add this. We can find later that the total output under price discrimination is higher than the total output under uniform. Therefore, because the total output is higher, as a result, the PD will be lower than PU. Okay, and then since now the final price is lower, this can increase consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare. So we can find that consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare are all higher under price discrimination than under uniform pricing. So the author proved that price discrimination actually is not always harm the consumer surplus or the social welfare. By introducing the horizontal shareholding, they find that price discrimination increases social welfare. Okay, next, this is the comparison. We can have the total output here, the total output producer surplus, and this one is producer surplus. So producer surplus is just the combination of the three firms' profit, and we can take the differences. We subtract or we minus QD minus QU, so we can see because this one is positive and this one is positive, so we can find that the total output under discriminatory minus the total output under uniform is higher. Okay, and we can also find the producer surplus, so we can make the arrangement here. Okay, so we can see from here that pi to u and pi mu means that the profit of firm 2 under uniform and the profit of upstream under uniform is larger than the profit of their firm under discriminatory, their profit under discriminatory. So we can, for the producer actually, we can also only find pi 1 under discriminatory is higher than pi 1 under uniform. So okay, now the authors wants to endogenize the horizontal shareholding. So it says that the manufacturers choose whether to allow firm 1 to acquire a proportion lambda of manufacturers 2 equities. So to complete the acquisition, a transaction cost of F element of 0 to capital F must be incurred. So we have the game setting here. The downstream manufacturers decide whether to have manufacturers 1 hold or manufacturers 2's minority stake. And then in the second stage, upstream supplier set input price, and the third is the downstream firm compete in quantity. Actually, the two stage are the same as the previous one. The only stage we add here is this one. Okay, so now we go on to the first stage. So as I mentioned before, that the incentive to have the horizontal shareholding is coming from the joint profit. Whether the joint profit after having the horizontal shareholding is higher than the joint profit before having the horizontal shareholding. So we can find here the joint profit of manufacturers 1 and 2 in the downstream. If manufacturer 1 hold the share of manufacturer 2, so we can find, we add the pi 1 as a function of lambda and pi 2 as a function of lambda under uniform. So here, if lambda equals to 0 means they don't have the horizontal shareholding, right? So we can find here. And so that's for for discriminatory price. Okay, and then therefore in stage 1, manufacturer 1 acquires the share of manufacturers 2 if and only if the joint profit after horizontal shareholding is higher than no horizontal shareholding. Okay, so we can see from here that this one is positive and this one is also positive. So we can find from here that actually their joint profit after having horizontal shareholding is higher than no shareholding, because this one is positive. And we can see from the, so we can find the FU. Okay, and this is the condition for discriminatory input price. So we can find here that this one is positive, this one is positive, and actually this one is positive. But now we want to see the incentive, right? Okay, under these two conditions, we can find that the joint profit after horizontal shareholding is higher. Both are higher. But now we want to compare which one is higher. So when we compare FU and FD, finally we find that FU is higher than FD. So we can find proposition 2. The downstream manufacturer have a lower incentive to form a horizontal arrangement under price discrimination than under uniform price. So means that the downstream manufacturers have higher incentive under uniform input price, because the total profit or difference is higher under uniform compared to under discriminatory. Okay, now in the next section, we like the authors like to check the robustness. So the author use the cross ownership. Cross ownership means, if we go back to the model, cross ownership means downstream from 1 own part of the downstream from 2, and downstream from 2 own the share of the from 1. So they each share each other. Okay, let me repeat. Each of the downstream firm own the rival. Okay, So now our objective function become like this. Capital pi I equals to pi I plus the share in the rifle, where I equals to 1 and 2. Okay, so the author assumed that manufacturer 1 has weekly larger interest in rifle, or firm 2 means that manufacturer 1 owns weekly or a little bit larger in firm 2 compared to firm 2 owned in firm 1. So we can see from here lambda 1 larger or equals to lambda 2. So we can solve the calculation, the routine calculation. We start from the second stage and we can find it here. So when we take the first derivative of lambda I with respect to qi with respect to lambda I, we can find here that increase in lambda I decrease qi means if firm J own firm I more, firm I will decrease, the quantity of firm I will decrease. Why? Because now I let my rifles produce more because I own, this is my ownership in my rifle. So if I let my rifle produce more, then I will have higher part of his profit. So this is the relationship. With cross shareholding, each firm's output decreases with the rifle share it holds, but increases with each share held by the rifle. Okay, now we substitute the Q in the second stage into the upstream supplier profit function. We can find W1 and W2 like this. So we still have the same. Now, since actually even though we discuss about cross ownership, but since we consider this one, that firm 1 ownership in firm 2 is higher, so we can find the same arrangement as before. Let me check in here. Okay, so we can see here. So note, when each downstream manufacturer holds the share in rifle, under price discrimination, the monopolistic input supplier charge a lower price to the manufacturer that hold a larger shareholder on the rifle. Yes. And then we substitute W, optimal W, into the Q and P, so we can find here. So compare the output price welfare under the two pricing regime. We can find proposition 3. When each downstream manufacturer holds the share of its rival, input price discrimination increases total output and decreases price of the final good relative to uniform pricing. Therefore, CS, PS, and social welfare are all higher under price discrimination than under uniform pricing. So this result is actually the same as proposition 1 here. Okay, so this is the first robustness check. The second one, okay, here he also find this one, FU larger than FD. So he can find the proposition 4. The downstream manufacturers have a lower incentive to form a cross-shareholding arrangement under price discrimination than under uniform price discrimination. So this one is actually the same as proposition 2. Okay, now the author wants to check the second robustness is the price competition. Means the downstream firm compete in return. So here is the utility function. So from the utility function, we can find the inverse demand. B element from 0 to 1 represent the degree of substitutability between the two products. So when B equals to 1 means the two products are perfect substitute. Okay, and this is the demand. Okay, so we substitute the Q into the firm's objective function, and then we solve the objective function with respect to P. Then we can find P here for uniform, and this is the P for discriminatory input price. So later we can find the first stage W bar, and here is the W bar. So here we have the same result, right? Firm 1, who is the acquiring firm, receive lower input price, but the acquired firm receive higher input price from the supplier. Okay, then we can solve the routine calculation. We can find here is the final price. The final price for firm 1 is higher than firm 2, because we know that the quantity of firm 1 is lower because his input price is higher. So the consumer purchases more of the product of manufacturers too because the price is lower, whose profit also enters the first objective. And here we can see that under uniform price, they receive the same final price. So discriminatory pricing of the input exactly offset the effect of horizontal shareholding on the prices. So we can find proposition 5. When the downstream manufacturers supply differentiated consumer goods and compete in price, input price discrimination raises consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare relative to uniform price. Okay, so this is the next proposition. Okay, they have additional proposition here. In the long run, we saw that incentive for horizontal shareholding can be lower or higher under price discrimination. So it depends on the beta. Beta is the degree of substitutability of the firm. So they find proposition 6. When the downstream manufacturers supply this differentiated consumer good and compete in price, there exists beta hat such that the downstream manufacturers have a lower incentive to form horizontal shareholding arrangement under price discrimination than under uniform, if beta is higher than beta hat, so respectively. So when the downstream, or when one of the downstream or each manufacturers hold the share of the rival, input price discrimination increases total output and decreases the price of the final good relative to uniform pricing. So this is the result we find. So because now the final price is lower, consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare are all higher under price discrimination than under uniform. Or we can say, actually, maybe I recorrect my statement that the final price can, because now lower final price, right, which is better for the consumer. So I think the final price more concerned to the consumer surplus and social welfare. So that is why all are higher under price discrimination than under uniform pricing. The next is when the downstream manufacturers supply differentiated consumer good and compete in price. Import price discrimination raises consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare relative to uniform price. And then the last conclusion is, in the long run, the increase in joint profit due to horizontal shareholding is higher when the input is priced uniformly. Okay, so that's all. Thank you.